Welcome. I'm here with Brian Balfour, the Executive Vice President of the Civitas Institute. Brian's a go-to source on budget and taxes. He's given a lot of commentary on these issues. He's an important voice for the state. Brian, give us a picture right now of what's going on with this budget and tax climate. I mean, there's so many unknowns, but why is North Carolina a little bit better prepared than many states right now when it comes to this coronavirus crisis?
Yeah, Ray. Thanks for having me on, Ray. And that's a really important thing to look at is just where we are in terms of the state budget and how prepared we are. What we do know is that we are going to see with this economic shutdown, we're going to see a significant drop in state revenues. The question is going to be how big that drop's going to be, and then of course, besides that, question is going to be how well prepared are we to kind of weather that storm. And so right now what we're looking at with the state of North Carolina is we've got, state government has the rainy day fund reserves built up to just over $1.1 billion. There's also what's called unspent department non-reverting funds of about $1.5 billion. So that puts us up over about 2.6 to $2.7 billion, basically an unspent money saved up in preparation of this, which puts us in a lot better position than we were when you compare it back to, say, 2008 when the Great Recession hit, when we had similar circumstances, obviously different circumstances, but similar from the point that there's a significant drop off in revenue going to the state. Back then, the rainy day fund itself was only about I think about 100, so far less there, and did not have the $1.5 billion in unspent general fund money available to be deployed. And another thing too, just to note on the spending side, when you look at as we rolled into 2008-9, that fiscal year, the state had ratcheted up spending in the state budget by 40% in the previous 8 years. So that's a significant ratcheting up, and a lot of that was increasing and driving up our recurring expenditures, recurring spending obligations that were cooked into the budget. Transition now to today, and we look at the past 8 years, and state budget spending has only increased by 16%. So there hasn't been that same kind of significant ratcheting up of these spending obligations either. So on both sides of the ledger, really, we've got more savings set aside now, and we don't have as many spending obligations build up moving into the current crisis that we're about to experience. So that's kind of both sides of the ledger. We're much more well prepared. Again, the big question mark is just going to be what size impact this is going to have on the state budget.
You wrote a piece, it's already on the site on the budget and taxes, and you mentioned the importance of not raising taxes. Now, some might be thinking, well, if we're going to have a revenue shortfall, shouldn't we raise taxes on those that can afford it, or maybe a wealthier population in the state? Why would it be a good idea not to raise taxes?
Yeah, well, a couple of reasons there. I think that would be a little short-sighted and maybe kind of a, penny wise, pound foolish kind of situation. The worst thing you want to do during a recession is to raise taxes on people. And that's just not just talking about, who may or may not be able to afford taxes right now, but just the impact on the economy overall, as we as a nation and as a state are going to try to dig ourselves back out of this recession that we're being confronted with. Imposing heavier taxes, creating negative incentives for economic growth, job creation, that sort of thing. That's really the worst thing you want to do. That's just going to deepen the recession and lengthen the amount of time it takes us to recover. There's been a lot of research on how North Carolina handled it during the Great Recession just over a decade ago, when we did implement temporary taxes. And which leads me to the other thing is a lot of times these so-called emergency taxes labeled as temporary taxes often turn out to be very difficult to get rid of. That's what we've seen the last couple of recessions, even going back to 2001. I've researched this quite a bit. There were several temporary taxes imposed. They got those temporary taxes were renewed multiple times, ended up staying on even after the state's economy was well underway in recovery for years. Those temporary taxes still remained, taking, in excess of $1 billion from North Carolinians when the state budget really didn't need it. It was just fueling that accelerated state budget spending growth that I mentioned earlier. So those, I think, are two really primary reasons to oppose it at this time. It's
Yeah,
going to
one
make
of
the
the things.
recession worse, and then it may end up being more permanent.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. One of the things I'm worried about is with these record low, at least, in the short term, record low gas prices that people are seeing. I'm worried about states thinking about it might be a good idea to raise the gas tax. And so that's just something that I was concerned about. It's obviously a regressive tax and it's the poorest, the hardest. So, anytime you see low um, low gas rates, a lot of legislatures want to come in session and raise the gas tax. So hopefully that's not something that happens.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's something to avoid as well. I mean, with the economy being shut down and people being ordered to stay in their houses, obviously there's going to be a significant drop in demand for gas. So that's a big reason why we're seeing the gas prices drop. So I think once, hopefully sooner rather than later, once the economy starts to open back up and things clear up in terms of the virus pandemic, and the economy starts to become open for business, we're gonna see those gas prices start to come back up as the demand returns back to normal.
So undoubtedly, we're going to have a revenue shortfall in North Carolina. Every state's dealing with that. What are some ways to reduce spending that may be fair or nonpartisan? Because you don't want to get protracted and protracted into some kind of entrenched warfare about spending. What's a way that we can reduce spending soon, hopefully, without it being partisan or getting into some kind of entrenched warfare?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do want to emphasize that the state legislature, in my belief, they need to start taking measures now, because this drop off in revenue is going to start to hit very, very soon. And one thing that's I'm not really seeing being discussed very much is the fact that the State Department of Revenue has joined the federal IRS in pushing off the deadline for taxes from April 15th to July 15th. But here in North Carolina, what that means is that's a lot of money that's going to be pushed off that was originally would have been counted on for balance this current fiscal year's budget. That's going to be pushed off into the next fiscal year. And I actually heard in a committee meeting, fiscal research analysts saying that could impact the current year state budget by as much as $2 billion in lost revenue would be pushed off into the next year. So in order to balance the current year's budget, I think the governor and state legislators, they need to start taking actions right now. And a few, I think, actions that are nonpartisan that can be taken right away is, they can look at a 5% spending reduction on all non-health related state agencies. Also, we can look at doing a hiring freeze, just make sure that the state doesn't hire any more folks the rest of this fiscal year. And I think that should continue into the next fiscal year. Also, there's 1,700 unfilled vacant state positions that were budgeted for, but they've been vacant since the beginning of the fiscal year, which was July 1. I think making sure to state agencies divert that money into savings so we can help fill any coming budget gap. And then one other thing, we can halt expenditures for capital projects for which the state funds have been appropriated, but they have not yet been placed under contract. So, they haven't broken ground or anything yet. And, getting to your nonpartisan point, these actually are all actions that Democratic Governor Beverly Perdue imposed back during the Great Recession. These were done, so a number of them were done via executive order. So, that would be coming from Governor Roy Cooper's office. So I don't know that anyone could accuse us of these actions being partisan when a Democrat governor imposed these back a decade or a dozen years ago.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you have any final thoughts on the budget, kind of where we're headed? I mean, you talked about the importance of taking immediate action. Should legislatures be coming into session and dealing with these expenditures right now? I mean, sometimes there's been some criticism that, there's not enough going on in the General Assembly, but what do you know as of right now, are they doing or needs to be done right at this moment?
I know there's the House has formed a number of committees that are taking a look at different issues, like from the economy to healthcare and other things, how to address this. To be honest, I'm getting more and more concerned the more time goes by that no one is really talking about what do we need to do now
Yeah.
to make sure that the state can balance the budget and pay its bills the rest of this fiscal year. And then even going into next fiscal year, when we come up on the new fiscal year, July 1, budget writers are going to be tasked with trying to project revenue for the next fiscal year. Well, yeah, good luck with that. With everything that's going on, there's so much uncertainty over how this is going to impact the economy and the fallout going forward. I think they're going to have to be very, very cautious when they write that budget for the next coming fiscal year. Really err on the side of anticipating kind of the worst impacts and budget for that, so they can make sure that they're not overextended on their commitments. And then if things clear up and start to improve more quickly, then hey, that's just going to be considered kind of icing on the cake. But for right now, I think, again, immediate action, I think, and this can even start at the governor's office today with executive orders. I think they need to be proactively setting money aside to make sure the state can pay its bills the rest of this fiscal year. And then as they look forward to next fiscal year, they definitely want to avoid any tax increases right now during recession. I think they need to be really just strongly on the spending side, trying to rein in spending, strategically using the reserves that they've built up to avoid anything, any kind of panic measures like temporary taxes that
Right.
are going to harm people that are hurting right now.
That's Brian Balfour. I'm Ray Nothstine. You can read all of our content, nccivitas.org. We have a lot of policy updates and recommendations on our site, so thank you for tuning in.